This seemed quite valuable. Now, this was clearly worth something. Some things were worthless junk, but this could be sold for a decent price. The room was so cold, my shoes wouldn't stick to the ice. Even Heather was confused by this upgrade. It took her ages, but with a few final twists of her spanner, the power-up was complete. Once we got it working, it was great. I could finally walk along while ducking. I knew the score: 10 minutes to get back to the hallway. Sim took the satellite part from me and promptly dropped it. The old lady looked worried as she picked it up, but luckily it was still in working order. So we made our way up to the roof to install it. With this, we were one step closer to broadcasting the nice virus. It was quite late, so everyone slowly went to bed, until it was just me and Alice. The sweet smell of her funny green tobacco filled the air as she explained she had a surprise for everyone in the morning. I wasn't sure what she was talking about, as I soon found myself drifting off. The next day, everyone was wearing their best clothes. Alice had finally talked them into going to her church. There was going to be a summer fete in her town. They were all driving in Mr. Silton's van, but it was so cramped that I thought it would be better if I took my usual method of transport and traveled by train. "Now then," said the dirty old man, "let's see what you've got. Haven't seen one of these since I was a boy. I'll just clean off the blood. If that's genuine, I'll be quids in. That's a beauty. I like these. Can never have too many of these. That's a beauty. This is nice. Impressive. I like these. This is nice. If that's genuine, I'll be quids in. If that's genuine, I'll be quids in. Impressive. I collect these. I like these. Everything else is junk." "Go on then," said the younger man, "stick everything in Bertha." An additional shield orb slot. Very useful. That will be 50,000. Take to the skies with more control than ever. Very good, sir. That will be 50,000. This was one of the most valuable things I'd seen. I suppose the one good thing about a closed fun fair was the lack of queues. I didn't know how much this was worth, but it looked expensive. This seemed quite valuable. Oh. Now, this was truly worth something. The exit door was blocked by one of the Ferris wheel's cars, but I could see the controls on the other side. Some things were worthless junk, but this could be sold for a decent price. Now that the exit was unblocked, I just needed to get back to the door. This was one of the most valuable things I'd seen. Oh. I didn't know how much this was worth, but it looked expensive. "Now then," said the dirty old man, "let's see what you've got. I like this. I like this. I like this. That's a beauty. This is nice. That's a beauty. That's going straight on eBay. Cheap as chips. Everything else is junk." "Go on then," said the younger man, "stick everything in Bertha." Some people deserve a good bashing, sir. The cost for this upgrade is 80,000. I'm no good with technology, sir. The charge for it is 10,000. A man in a nice white dress spoke of creation, life, death, and ascension. The stories were slightly confusing, but I found them very comforting. After the service, Mr. Silton and some of the others were all very excited to buy some smelly green tobacco from the man in the nice dress. "Come on, girls," said Alice as she offered a cigarette. "Anyone partaking?" But Mrs. Silton pointed to her pregnant tummy as she said, "You're as bad as my husband." The man, who I found out was called the vicar, took the cigarette. "Robot, as you know," he said as he took a deep breath, "our sports day is this afternoon. Do you think you're up to the challenge?" I walked up to Sim and the vicar, but I wasn't sure what they were talking about. "Yeah," said Sim, "totally filled the basement. She's got 3 old garages as well. All full, stuff everywhere. I mean, it obviously hit me hard when..." Alice said she was popping inside. "Let me know if you need any more help." "If you really want to help, do me and yourself a favor. Stop collecting the bicycles, and everything else. You've got to let go." I think Alice made the decision right then and there, as she just turned to me and said, "It's all yours." The last thing I found was a small photo album. I decided I would leave it here. After I had cleaned their basement, Alice and Sim got back in the van with everyone else. So I caught the train back to the house, which I suppose now really was our family's home. Now then, said the dirty old man, there's nothing of value here. Go on then. Stay low and move fast.
Very wise, sir.
That will cost you 60,000.
Mind the doors. The train is now departing. Factoridden. This is Factoridden. Mind the doors. The train is now departing.
Mainton was the next stop. I could get back to the mainland and Mr. Silton's from here.
Mainden, this is Mainden. Mind the doors.
When I got back to the house, it was quite late, so everyone was going to bed. For once Alice wasn't smoking her smelly tobacco, and was actually the first one asleep. And so, I actually felt quite peaceful, as I made myself comfortable for the night. Japan must have different clocks to us, as it was barely daybreak when Dr. Hiro's next communication came through. It was amazing. He really had managed to find a few other groups of survivors. "So, these are our saviors," said the French scientist. "A band of thieves, some old ladies and a little girl." "Well, they've done better than we have," laughed the big German man. "There are no bad robots where they are." The Frenchman smirked. "Except for the three stood behind them." "Those are our friends," said Heather, quick as ever to defend us. "Guys, say hello." "So there is hope," said the American scientist. "The nice virus really does work. I've had Junior working on a similar virus, but the consciousness software is too well coded." "It's okay," said the old lady. "The virus really does work." The next day, Heather tried to finish off the nice virus code. There were a few problems, but, with a bit of help from the old lady, everything eventually worked. However, by the time we were done, it was quite late, and, as Heather's nice virus code would take a few hours to compile, the old lady suggested we take it easy for the evening. She rummaged through her suitcase and pulled out a pack of what she called cards. For some reason this offended the blind man, who didn't want to play, and Mrs. Silton refused, as she seemed to think it was some kind of gambling. But everyone else gathered around the table. The old lady had explained that the rules involved lying, or bluffing, as she put it, so everyone would be trying to work out what each other's cards were. I think the pressure of playing got to Alice, as she folded almost straight away. At one point, Mr. Preston thought he had won, but he really hadn't. As usual, Sim's sneeze gave him away, which made us all laugh. At one point there was a very tense standoff. Mr. Silton had some very good cards, but not as good as Mr. Deck. Soon, it came down to Mr. Logan, Heather, and myself. Then, just me and Heather. Despite having the best cards possible, I decided to let Heather win. I was so pleased how happy this made her. It was nearly midnight by the time the game finished, so most people got ready for bed, leaving just me, Mr. Preston and Mr. Logan. Mr. Preston was trying to explain his conspiracy theories. This made Mr. Logan laugh. "Barry already told you all that was nonsense," but Mr. Preston continued. Don't listen to Silton, he's a proper c***. However, Mr. Logan still pointed out how flawed his logic was. For one, everyone who he claimed was in the shadowy syndicate ruling the world from behind the scenes were the same people who actually ruled the world, the Queen of England, the President of America, etc. He wasn't even swayed when Mr. Logan pointed out that these people had either been missing or dead since the war, so there was little chance anyone was even ruling the world these days. Mr. Preston paused briefly, then smiled the smile of a man confident in his own beliefs, and went to bed. Which left just me and Mr. Logan talking. He was an interesting man, but we'd never really chatted as he'd made it quite clear he didn't really like robots. He'd seen many friends killed by them during the war, so I could kind of see his point. I tried to explain that I had once accidentally killed an old man, and I still felt complete regret.
That's good. You never really get over it,
he said as he looked around.
Time for bed. Good night.
Very early the next morning, a terrified-looking Dr. Hero appeared on the screen. Our defenses are nearly breached, the last door could go at any moment. We are nearly ready to broadcast the nice virus, said the old lady. But her expression soon turned to confusion. Where's the American scientist? They never saw it coming, said Dr. Hero. Just like here, thousands of robots, all attacking at once. Heather looked like she was going to burst into tears. There were no survivors, said the French scientist. It was all so quick. It was strange. Although we'd only spoken to the Americans once, I could tell everyone felt a huge sense of loss. We may have a problem here too, interrupted Sim. The robot server, it's become sentient. The computer that runs everything, he really is now a he, or at least he thinks he is. The blind man explained that it was the wireless fidelity system that would have linked him to the 4 main robots. That's why they were all so clever, said the old lady. The network spread the intelligence around all 4 of them. Well, said Mr. Silton, 5 now. Sim explained I would need to force a power cycle on the server before we sent the signal. He's got so much control of the network now, he could probably shut the satellite back down before we'd even started setting it up. The old lady rummaged around in a few boxes. Here, she said as she gave me a passkey, take this, it'll get you into the observatory in the attic, that's where he is.